We talked about the best cards, we talked about the worst cards of this year, but let's take a look at the bigger picture and see what Bushiroad did right, but more importantly today, what they did wrong. As today we're gonna take a look at the top 5 biggest screw ups or fuck ups that Bushiroad did in 2019. Stand up! Vanguard! There were a couple of bad things that happened this year, but most of them stem from the same issue, and one of those problems were the sheer power level that Premium Collection possessed. What I mean with this is that the power of a big chunk of cards were way too high. This set itself is not a mistake and it's actually something I really liked, but the execution leaves things to be desired. What I mean with this is we had a set to revive the premium format to get new blood in the system than just the main deck support we get from standard. But in doing so, they overshot themselves, or in some cases, just shot themselves in the foot. We had cards like Violence Ace, Saint of Twin Swords, Darkface Ghidorah and Bustard, which are insane cards which would dominate anything that would came out before the reboot started. But for some reason sees almost no play, because believe it or not, this set holds even more powerful cards that dominate the meta. Green Katrina, Spare Cross Dragon, Gastile Dominas and even Ichikishimas are cards that are on a whole nother level. And the latter even got banned from the game. And now the player base wants 2 out of the remaining 3 decks to get hit as well. This just explains what a shit show emerged from the release of the Premium Collection 2019. Especially if you learn that this set also contains stinkers like Fulgurate, Shandy, Amaruda Ampharos and Final Dimax DX. Yeah, hopefully they learn from their mistakes when they make Premium Collection 2020. Either way, I'm excited to see what kind of spectacle that set will bring. Right from the Premium Collection we flow into the second point on this list, and that is the fact Bushiroad resorted to permanently ban a card. The fact that they hit Ali and Ichikishima is not the problem here. It's the fact they outright banned a card in Vanguard. This never happened before, as Bushiroad is strongly against banning cards. But even though that's the case, it happened. There are a couple of problems that arises from this specific action. The most obvious one is that Bushiroad really screwed up with designing cards. Not only did they need to ban Ali, a very old card from more than a year ago, but also Ichikishima, which was only 1 month old at the time. The fact that they banned a brand new card is really concerning, as it means they didn't think every card completely through as to what kind of impact they would have on the meta game. But the bigger problem is that the fact that they banned a card. Everybody knows doing something you don't want to do is the hardest to do for the first time. But after that instance, it becomes a lot easier to do it again. And this might also be the case for Bushiroad concerning just outright banning cards. Or if you spin it in the other way around, because they banned a card, they can experiment with more powerful skills, as they can just outright ban the card when it goes out of control. This is a very problematic scenario, which also holds a positive point, because if Bushiroad isn't shackled by absolute perfect game design, they can experiment with cards which would be way too risky, which in turn could give us more fun cards to play with that otherwise would never be made. Either way, these are both extreme scenarios and will probably have no immediate impact on the game right now. And this could have been a one-time thing. With the new ban list on its way, let's wait and see what Bushiroad's approach is for this year's list. We already discussed about the insane power level Premium Collection brought to the table, but that's one single set. There was a bigger problem, and that was the overall power creep that happened this year. The beginning of this year was just fine when the Answer of Truth was released, but once Miyagi hit, every deck except Nubatama was immediately top tier. Even golds became ridiculous. Then the set afterwards we got Violence the Leaders, which didn't do that much, but it contained Shiroyuki, which is still a problem card for some till this day. Then the next set we got Bermudas, which became stronger than anything that came before thanks to the melody cards in that set. The set afterwards was mainly a weaker set, but it introduced us to the basis of Beast Deity, which allowed Novas to ride the dominance, and it gave Kagero an insane boss unit in the likes of Degrade. Then follow up with the Heroic Evolution, we got even more Beast Deity support and Messiah, which was also a really strong engine. Then afterwards we got the Maglory's Justice, which gave us Glory Maelstrom, which turned a nobody clan to a tier 1 contender, just like what happens with Novas before. So for each set gave rise to 1, maybe 2 new main contenders. But this was turned all the way to 11 with the following 2 sets, as we got Aerial Steed Liberation, which gave us the insane Narukami support for Gauntlet Buster Dragon, the new Gold Paladin Grade 3, and even weaker cards like Jamia Kongo, Ganzelot and Tsukiyomi were pretty strong, as all these decks could demolish most decks that came out before this year. And this wasn't enough, as they followed up with Phantasmal Steed Restoration, which has support for 4 clans, and all 4 became top tier decks at some point, which is insane to think about. There wasn't one stinker in this set. Even the budget deck for Pale Moon could contend with other previous top tier decks, which is so nuts. The next big thing was the Raging Tactics, as we got introduced to the Exodia Tachi build, as they could win on turn 3 if they opened up Exodia. Followed up, we saw a big dip in overall power level of the sets, as Infinite Deity Cradle, the Mysterious Fortune, and even now Team Dragon's Vanity looks to be way weaker than what Phantasmal brought to the table. However, it looks like that beginning next year, that once Crystal Melody hits, we get another bump in power with the whole Riviere and Coral shenanigans. The only silver lining we can take away is that Bushiroad decided to turn down with the power creep a bit since Infinite Deity Cradle, and will hopefully keep at this pace for a bit longer so we don't burn ourselves out. And if all goes to shit, I know for sure that Gear Chronicle can save us. Talking about Gear Chronicle, one of the biggest issues I have this year was the sheer amount of wait time between certain support waves. We had like 3 months in a row with Link Joker support. We also saw multiple Royal Paladin and Shadow Paladin as well as Kagero support back to back. Even Novas got 3 support waves this year. But between all that, we had clans like Aquaforce, Grand Blue and Dimension Police, which had to wait a whole year for another wave of support. And they were the lucky ones, especially Aquaforce, as they got another wave of support very soon. But then you had clans like Mega Colony, Spike Brothers, Tachikaze and Gear Chronicle, which needed to wait 14 months for another wave of support. And what's even more annoying is that their first support wave was lacking quite a lot to survive more than once a month. Spikes and Tachi were the better off clans, as their engine worked and were released in a time where power creep wasn't as high as it was for Gear Chronicle, which was made obsolete before the next set dropped. Same as for Mega Connolly, but that has to do with the clan was lacking support primarily, and an important promo which they only got 15 months after their first wave of support. I have no problem with other clans getting more support like Royal, Shadow and Kagero, but they need to make a better distribution of clan support so that non-main character clans have to wait less for new support. Luckily, with the new approach with the new anime, it's going to look a lot better, as non-main character clans or clans that used to be in favor in the previous seasons are suddenly on the front line, like Genesis, Nubatama and Great Nature. Before I tell you what Bushiroad's biggest fuck up was this year, let me talk about 2 dishonorable mentions. First off, why didn't Bushiroad reprint the Draw PGs? These things are starting to get a bit expensive for certain decks. If you're lucky, you could get a playset for around 10 to 15 bucks. But for some clans, they can spike all the way up to $60 or more if you're unlucky. And yeah, sure, they reprinted the Genesis Draw PG, but that was only 1 copy in a trial deck. What was that about? It's not like they could put it out of the new set. So if they wanted to get more, they either need to buy 3 other trial decks, which gave them a bunch of useless cards, or they needed to buy it online, as there was no way people could get their hands on the Answer of Truth boosters. The best thing Bushiroad can do is to have another Revival Collection set, and instead of having Stride Fathers in them, which nobody's using anyways, and put in the Draw PGs for each and every single clan. And maybe one other key card that is way too expensive, like the main for Shadows. Last time I checked, that card was like $15 to $20 a piece. Excuse me? Another thing is not something that happened this year, but rather something that didn't happen this year. Bushiroad, you started to promote a more competitive tournament scene with open region lock for tournament entrants and auto invite for world champions so they can defend their title. But why the fuck haven't you reintroduced best out of 3 for Top Cut? I already discussed this last year, but come on, this is getting really annoying. You cannot promote a competitive tournament scene if your top cut is best out of 1. Alright, now it's time to unveil the biggest mistake Bushiroad made this year. Bushiroad, where is my Chronojet? We're almost 2 years in the reboot and we got G units like Blademaster, Claret Sword and Vanquisher. But where is my boy, Chronojet? You dare have the audacity to give us this stupid kitty before our Lord and Savior? Shame on you. No, but with all seriousness, it was really impossible to make an actual top 5 mistakes of this year, unlike last year where there was a bit more things we could talk about. Bushiroad really stepped up their game since last year, but that doesn't take away that there were some issues, but most of them could be summed up in one word: power creep. Power creep was the main problem this year with the whole premium collection and the overall standard support. But even when we're honest, it wasn't as bad as it was during the end of G, and with the support power level slowing down, it seems that most of these problems are going to be less of an issue for now than it was a few months ago. And let's hope that this pattern isn't going to be a thing for only 2 or 3 months. And there you have it, the top 5 biggest mistakes of 2019 done by Bushiroad. Of course, this list is mainly 1 or 2 main points and the rest are just nitpicks to fill out the list. As I just explained, there wasn't a lot of negative things this year except for the main power creep. But of course there are maybe other different things that I might have overlooked that could have impacted your experience of playing Vanguard to some extent that you think is really deserving of a one of top 5 biggest fuck ups from Bushiroad. So let me know in the comments down below what you think are the biggest mistakes that happened this year. Might it either be a specific support, might it be in handling of a certain event or the handling of a ban list? Let me know in the comments down below all your thoughts and opinions about this matter. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters for making this video or everything happening on the channel possible. You guys are amazing. And if you do want to support the channel, then head over to patreon.com/Vanguard Insider and become a Patreon today. But before we end this video, I hope you guys join us tomorrow when we end this entire mini-series, when we take a look at the best things that Bushiroad did for Vanguard for 2019. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!